I'm gonna tell you a story here about Coach Johnson, and I want to tell you, and I'm gonna show you what he did when it came to the quarterback position. I was there the first year with the guys, and I remember Troy Aikman coming up to me. We were at a steakhouse, me, Crawford Kerr, Daryl Johnson. We're sitting there at Thousand Oaks, and Troy Aikman comes up to me and he goes like this: "Hey, so Jimmy drafted your boy, huh?" I looked at Aikman, and I swear, everyone, I went just like this. You don't think that guy's going to start? And he loved and loves to this day Steve Walsh. Guy loved me, one of his favorite players. But you know what that guy, I go, Troy, you don't think that guy's playing that guy, do you? That guy plays to win. Okay, he don't give a shit who you are. He plays to win. This guy's going to win. And this ain't nothing to do with friendship. So I say that, and then I bring my coach in on that, and I bring Jimmy Johnson in here now. Coach, people forget, man, you didn't draft Steve Walsh. And Coach, no shade on anything here, but you drafted him because you wanted the picks.
Yeah, that was pretty clear right off the bat, although I had to kind of walk the fence with Troy and Steve. I didn't want to devalue Steve Walsh, but I was going to trade him all along, and that's how we worked that first year. And then of course I got a 1, 2, and a 3 from New Orleans for Steve later on, and so it paid some dividends for me.
Coach, you brought down Buddy Ryan in 1986. I got pictures that I posted that he was at our practice and there was a relationship, and we're based in Philly. And it's Eagles and Cowboy week. How did that relationship turn once you got to the Cowboys into like this back and forth? And it made for such a great rivalry. I mean, how did that thing morph into that?
Well, actually, they had actually talked to me about possibly going to the Eagles at a later date. And so I'm really kind of an Eagles fan. But as far as Buddy and I, during that period of time, of course, we weren't real good that first year, and the second year we got a little better. And Buddy, he said, "Hey, I've got the upper hand on you." And so later on, when I was working with Fox, I went and did a game, there in Arizona when Buddy was in Arizona. And I said, "Buddy, I said, you did have the upper hand, but seems like to me, you never won a playoff game. And seems like to me, I think I've got a couple of rings on my hand right now." so I had the last laugh on Buddy, but I had a great relationship. He was a great, great defensive coach. And I've got great respect for his sons as well, or they're outstanding coaches as well when they did coach.
Coach, have you been shocked with the progression and growth of Jalen Hurts as a quarterback?
Yeah, he really has come strong, and I'm so impressed. He's such a leader. He's such a hard worker. I talked to Howie Roseman, when they were practicing against the Dolphins a year ago, and he just said the guy just worked so hard. And then I talked to Nick Sirianni. Sirianni said, "Hey, I'm a fan of yours." I said, "You're a fan of mine?" He said, "Yeah, I've been following you longer than anybody, ever." I said, "No, what do you mean?" He said, "I became a fan of yours when you were on that TV show, Coach." And I said, "That was in 1993. I said, "You were a little kid." He said, "Yeah, I saw you on Coach." But Sirianni's done a great job with Hurts. And I think the big thing is Howie Roseman has brought in some outstanding talent, with A.J. Brown, with, all the supporting cast. It's made Hurts that much better.
Coach, tell me something when you're making, Coach, I don't want to put you in a position where I have you talking shade on Jerry, but I will say this, of all the people and players that he's tried to replace, he's never been able to replace you. When you were there for 5 years, hopefully I got the number right, you made 57 deals when you were there in that 5 years. And when I see a guy that's not aggressive, you told me something years ago, Coach. You said, "I'm never looking to replace the top 1% of my roster. I'm always looking to replace the 1% of my bottom of my roster, because that's how I know we're going to continue to get better." And it just seems that Jerry he falls in love with his guys. And Coach, you love us all. I know you do. However, yeah, I always felt you fell in like with us in case you had to make the right move for your team. You know what I'm saying, Coach? I mean, you were there to win. You weren't there to be buddies with everyone like it seems he is. Is that his mistake?
Well, I don't know that it's a mistake. They have a team that they really like. I understand that, and I think every franchise sometimes falls in love with their veterans and keep their veterans maybe a little bit too long. But when we won the first Super Bowl, we were the youngest team in the league, and by having the youngest team in the league, we were the lowest paid team in the league. And so that's why we were able to go on and win the next year. And of course, they won another one after that. But I was always looking to improve. My third year when we went to Detroit and got beat by Detroit in the playoffs, we struggled on pass defense. And right there in the locker room after the game, I said, we've got to improve our pass defense. And so that all season, I was able to make a trade for Charles Haley and then also draft Kevin Smith and Darren Woodson for the secondary. And then we went ahead and won the Super Bowl after that. So you're always looking to improve your football team.
Coach, one thing Howie Roseman has a lot in common with you. It just seems that he has an evaluation on every single and all 1,900 of the players that are in the league. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, wouldn't you agree, the reason that you had such an advantage on everyone else, it's kind of like Pete Carroll when he was at Southern Cal. You had recruited many of the kids who would go into the draft or would be free agents. So you kind of had a heads up on what this kid was. Maybe he's not tall enough. Maybe he doesn't run a really great 40, but he's got great instincts. So you had kind of like a head start on what you were looking at. This guy, Howie Roseman, Coach, he'll fail at getting corners. Then he'll go sign corners in free agency. He'll make a trade for AJ, who was underutilized with the Titans. Now you see what he's doing. I mean, how did you look at bringing players into your organization? It wasn't about the name on the back, was it? It was about a profile?
Yeah, you've got to know the player, and I think that's the advantage that we had when I first went to the Cowboys, is that because we were such an outstanding team at Miami, as you know, and you were a big part of it, and we were recruiting some of the top players in the country, and so I had been in their homes. I knew them as individuals. I knew what their makeup was. I knew how harder workers they were. I knew about their injuries, on and on and on. And so it gave me an advantage, those first couple of years drafting. And you mentioned Jerry and Stephen, and don't forget about Clay. Will McClay? He has done a great job as far as bringing in talent. You look at them right now, and I think the Cowboys and the Eagles are going to be a great ball game here this weekend. The way the Cowboys played this last week, I can see why they wouldn't make many moves, because they're pretty strong in all areas, and that keeps their salary cap down too. Where you really don't want to keep trying to trade and trying to chase the dream and wreck your salary cap by bringing in high-priced veterans. So if you've got a good young team, then at times you want to stay pat.
You know what though, Coach? When I think of your run, and I think of how physically imposing. You know what, Coach? I don't think you get enough credit for building that old line. People forget Mark Tuney and Kevin Gogan and Nate and all them guys were on a 4-win Cowboy team prior to you getting there. You solidified it by bringing in Stepnoski and also Emmitt Smith. I mean, you galvanized that unit and turned that unit into what became one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And you were there. You were a physically imposing team. I just think with Jerry running the team, it just looks too finesse. Arizona runs them over, Coach. San Francisco runs through them. You didn't have games where you guys were like that. It just seems over the last 25 years, they're more finesse than when you were there. Is that fair?
Yeah. I was talking to Dean Spanos. I had dinner with him here the other night, the owner of the Chargers. And, I said the game has changed so much. When you look at that offensive line we had in Dallas, a lot of it now, I'm going to make a statement here, and Howie Long and Michael Strahan argue about this every time I say it. of all the positions on the team, I think the one position where the coach is more important than the player is the offensive line. The offensive line coach is so important in professional football because they've got to have the continuity. Because you look at that line, the left tackle, Tuane, was an undrafted free agent that we moved from defense to offense. The left guard was Nate Newton, was a undrafted free agent out of the USFL. The third rounder, Mark Sebnoski. Then you got Kevin Gogan, who was a 7th rounder at right guard, and you got Eric Williams, who is a 3rd rounder from Central State of Ohio at the right tackle. So you got two third rounders, you got a 2nd rounder, and a couple of undrafted free agents. So Tony was so important. And the other thing too, what I was talking to Spanos about, is the game has changed so much. You know, Dan, you remember we had the inside drill, the physical. We were in pads every single day.
3 hours.
Yeah, and then Fridays I would let you take your pants down. You could wear shorts, but you still wore your shoulder pads when we worked on the goal line.
Yep.
And they don't have those physical practices anymore. And so I don't know that you can develop the young offensive line to get the continuity. You don't have those physical scrimmages every single day to build that offensive line. And so I think that really hurts every football team when you're not having physical practice. But now some teams could get away with it. Back in the year, you know, when Bill Walsh was at the 49ers, they didn't practice real physical and they got it done. But my personality, we had to have physical practices.
Couple last questions for you, Coach. So Dave Wanstett's on tomorrow. So Tony Weiss was the most important coach on your coaching staff. I just want to be clear here.
Yeah, he developed that offensive line. I don't know if that he was the most important coach, but he developed that offensive line.
Butch is listening right now. He's laughing. I could tell. How do you see this game playing out Sunday, Coach? Cowboys, you know, those 2 wobbly losses. How do you look at this game on Sunday between Philly and Dallas?
Well, the Cowboys haven't played that well on the road, but the way they looked, you know, this past weekend, if they play that well, you know, they beat anybody. And Philadelphia, even though they're 7-1, they haven't played up to their potential either. They've been turning the ball over. So I think the biggest key in the game, because you got 2 very good teams, is going to be turnover, just like in every game. The other thing too is not only the turnovers, which receiver is going to have a big day? Is it going to be A.J. Brown or is it going to be CeeDee Lamb? CeeDee Lamb had a big day here this past weekend, but Brown's had big days for the last 6 weeks. So which receiver really has a hot day and which team protects the football?
Final question for you, Coach. Is this a Dallas Cowboy career game for Dak Prescott? There's decisions to be made at the end of the year with him. You're probably going to have to come to the table if you want him for $50 million. They've got Parsons and Lamb to sign with future deals. You can't keep getting bounced in the opening round, Coach, and think that that's going to get it done for you. How big a game, or maybe is it the season still yet to play out to determine that conversation?
Well, Dak Prescott's probably the most scrutinized player in the entire league, you know, week in and week out. And you don't ever replace a good player unless you've got somebody better. And I think with the Cowboys, Dak Prescott will probably be with the Cowboys for a long time. And it's a matter of, you know, I think, you know, with McCarthy, you know, calling the plays with sprinkling in the run, doing a little bit more as far as playing to the defensive side, that'll protect Prescott. And so, you know, the way he played, it was extremely accurate last weekend. If he can play that way through the playoffs, then everybody's going to be happy.
Coach, how's the fishing going?
Got a silverfish yesterday, so it's going okay. I haven't fished as much this year for one reason or another, but I'll plan on getting some fishing after the football season.
Man, Coach, I'll tell you what. I remember you saying all this. Man, I'm going to get a place and just live. And here you are with your toes in the sand, having a great time in life, man. You really, I mean, really, really fun stuff watching you, Coach. I love watching you on the NFL on Sunday, and thank you so much for being a huge part of my life. Thank you, Coach, for doing this. I really appreciate it.
I'm heading up to Stillwater, Oklahoma this weekend. I'm going to go to Union, the Blue Bonnet Bowl team at Oklahoma State, and then I go out to L.A. for Fox NFL Sunday.
Very good. Thank you, Coach. I appreciate it, my friend.
All right, Dan. Talk to you later.
You got it. The legendary Jimmy Johnson, NFL Pro Football Hall of Famer, and our friend, man. I enjoyed playing with him so much, man. He was such a major factor for us, and we appreciate it. All right. We're going to look at Week 9 of the National Football League, like I promised. Please hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.